All right, we are up here in the hills of North Carolina for the Tail of the Dragon. And this is one of those things, it has been a really long time coming. It's not that big of a deal to just come up here and go to the Tail of the Dragon, but we have been planning this for like 3 years, and we finally made it happen. So basically the story goes, I came up here for the first time with Matt and Adam. We were going up to Pennsylvania for a team tandem comp with our Z's. Adam suggested that we stop over here, run the Tail of the Dragon. Now he had his Evo 5, but Matt and I, we only had our Missile Car 350Zs, like full on drift cars. So I didn't expect much of it. I was like, it'll be all right, but like this is not at all the car to do this. Turns out some of the most fun I've ever had, even in a full on drift car, angle kit, drift alignment, crap tires, all that didn't matter. It was still an absolute blast. So I took a ride in Adam's Evo and I was instantly hooked, like instantly hooked. Not even on the Dragon, just some turns near the Dragon, hooked. And I was like, man, I need a turbo all-wheel drive car in my life, specifically a 90s JDM turbo all-wheel drive car. So I went on the hunt when I got back and I found this car for sale. So it was an unfinished project, GC8 4-door. It had a WRX swap. It ran and drove, but needed some work. But it had the JDM Tiger Stripe seats and some other cool odds and ends. It was a really good base to start with. But like all unfinished projects, it needed a lot more work than I anticipated. I mean, we ended up pulling every bit of the interior out to pull the harness out to get a proper harness merge done, brakes, suspension, refresh the engine, different turbo manifold. I built the exhaust for it like 2 different times because the first one wasn't that good. Built the second one, tucked it up super high, and moral of the story is I ended up doing a lot of work to this car and it pretty much wasn't done for about a year. And my plan was to knock it out quick and come right back to the Dragon. So get the car done, but then I didn't want to come up here alone. I wanted Ben to be able to come. But his only option was a stock 1.6 Miata. And it probably would have worked fine, but in my head, I'm like, I don't want to be in the turbo all-wheel drive car making 300 wheel and him in a 130 horsepower Miata. Like, it's not going to be fun, you know? So one day, I find the Pulsar for sale. And I was like, well, this is perfect. Ben's been bugging me to buy the Subaru. You really like the Subaru. I sell him the Subaru. I buy the Pulsar. Now we both have 90s turbo all-wheel drive cars, and we can go to the Dragon immediately. So we make all that happen, sell him the Subaru, buy the Pulsar, and here we are a year later. We finally made it. It's just one of those things. We've been talking about this specifically at least for a year. Like, we both have the cars, like there's no excuses now, and we haven't made it happen until now. We finally were just like, we're booking it, we're going, I don't care what else is that weekend, we're making this happen. And here we are. We're at the Dragon with our 90s turbo all-wheel drive car. So this is going to be Ben's first time driving or seeing the Dragon. It's going to be my first time doing it in a car that's like even remotely set up for it, you know? Like literally my Z had stock brakes. I think one of the tie rods was about to fall out. Like it was not the ideal setup to go rip the Dragon in. So I am super excited. Like I said, this has been, 3 years ago, I was like turbo all-wheel drive car, Dragon. That is what I want in my life. And 3 years later, some odds and ends were here. We made it. So that's the plan. We're gonna go drive the Dragon. You excited, Benny boy?
No, it should be super fun.
It's super cool up here. Yeah. Like we got this Airbnb and it's freaking mountains. There's a creek. It's pretty cool. Unfortunately, most of our friends bailed, so it's just us, but still gonna have a good time. So we headed off towards the Dragon. The road there is a really scenic, really pretty drive. You get to this kind of top area where it tightens up. It's a nice cruise from the Airbnb. Pretty much anywhere you can stay up here, you're gonna have a nice drive to the Dragon if that's what you're there for. So we pull into the Killboy shop, take a little break, regroup, come up with a plan, and then we head out onto the Dragon for the first time. So I'm going out here, taking it easy, right? I've never driven this car that hard, besides finding the one corner and the 10 miles in Florida. So, I haven't really ever pushed the car. I haven't really ever, really taken that many corners with it, period. So, just trying to learn the car, trying to learn the road. The thing with this road is a lot of the corners are kind of blind, so it is hard to tell what corners are tight and what corners aren't. Luckily, this guy lets us over. That's definitely one of the most frustrating things, is when you keep catching up to people and then they don't let you by. But we got pretty lucky. A lot of the people let us by. So started ripping on the road a little bit. Like I said, it's tough. You come into a corner like this and at first you see it and it looks like it might be a hairpin, but it's not. Usually the hairpins are marked with 15-mile-an-hour signs, so it's easier to tell. You can kind of start to learn the nuance of the corners to go by. Another person here, the crazy thing is how fast you catch up to people driving normal, even people spirited driving, which is kind of crazy because, you know, we're not driving all out, we're not driving at the limit, we're just kind of cruising in a slightly aggressive manner. It's just not a road you can drive anywhere near the limit on because the risk is so huge of going off a 300-foot cliff or a 500-foot cliff. But either way, I mean, we can catch it. You end up catching up to a lot of people just on the route through the road because, I mean, it is a long way. I had to move that water bottle. It was flopping around the floorboard, driving me nuts. But it is very scenic. It's an absolutely beautiful drive. The road is just so much fun. I know people say there's better roads, and you know, we tried some other roads, but to me this road is just so good because it's just constant back and forth, and the turns are almost all cambered in. It doesn't really come through on camber, but that turn's cambered one way and then this turn's cambered the other way, so you feel the car just kind of settle in and dig into the corner. And driving it with a turbo all-wheel drive car was pretty much everything I hoped it would be, you know. Again, we're not pushing it, especially not at this stage. This is our first run through the road, but just the ability to kind of settle the car and dig out of the corner, oh man, it's unmatched. It feels so good. So we get down to the bottom. This is kind of a little pull-off area, and regroup again and get ready to head back the other way. All right, we made it to the bottom. Pulsar did great. The only thing that worries me a little bit is I don't have an accurate coolant temp gauge. I have an oil temp gauge that's like actual numbers, but I know the coolant temp's probably dummy, where it's just going to stay in the middle until it gets probably overheated. So worry about that, but it seemed okay. Subs did good. Was it everything you hoped and dreamed it would be?
I'm moving to Tennessee, honestly.
Right, dude, it's like I forgot how good it was until coming here. I'm like, yep, this is as amazing as I remember it being.
No, because it's just super fun. You don't have to like drive like an asshole.
Yeah.
Where Florida, like everything,
you're going a million miles an hour. Yeah.
Or you're
yeah. Even here, the roads on the way here, I was like, oh man, like you got to kind of be on the limit. But once you get to the Dragon specifically, and I think what makes the Dragon so cool is it's so tight and technical that you're like second, third gear most of the time, and it's just the constant switchbacks, the camber change, like you're leaning this way and leaning back. It's like a roller coaster.
The thrill of like the drop-offs on both sides.
Yeah, that kind of sucks.
It makes it fun.
Yeah. I will say being in a right-hand drive car definitely makes it like more nervous because you're always on the side where the huge drop-off is. So like normally on the left-hand drive, you'd at least have some car between you and the drop-off, but with the right-hand drive, you're just looking right out the window at a 300-foot drop. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the old girl got hot. No, she's good. All right, going back the way we came. Ben's gonna lead this time. So I noticed quickly with Ben leading how much quicker the Subaru was on the straight sections. It makes sense. I've got the Pulsar on stock boost, which is like 8 or 9 pounds, somewhere around there. His car's on 18 pounds. It's tuned. It made 300 wheel with a massive exhaust leak before the turbo, before that was fixed. So it's definitely a lot quicker, and it was noticeable when we got on the straights. But you know, neither of us are really trying to rip the straights that hard, or you know, it'll be a straight with like some slight curvature, just because it's again that risk versus reward ratio. Like we're there for the corners, we're not there to go 90 down the straight. It is exciting and it is intense to do that, but for me, most of the time, it's just not worth it. You know, I just kind of get towards the top of third gear, and then I let out, I cruise to the next one, brake, initiate, so on and so forth. So going back the other way, this is more uphill. So, you know, you've got to use a lot more power. You can see I'm in second gear a lot of the time because just if I tried to do it in third at the pace I was going into the corners, the car would just bog so hard coming out of the corner. And you can see I kind of crowd the double yellow, which you absolutely should not do. If you ever go to this road, or really any road like this, but probably the biggest thing is do not cross the double yellow line, because you got to think there's people coming the other way around blind corners. Not good. Motorcycles, that is the number one rule. That and drive within your limits. But I'm crowding it a little bit. I was trying to fix the habit of just being in a right-hand drive car. I switch back and forth so much. Your tendency is to kind of push to the left because you're used to being so much further away from the outside of the road. And that was one tough thing coming this way because you're on the outside the whole time. So that drop off that you don't really pay attention to when you're on a left-hand drive car, you see it the whole time in a right-hand drive car just staring you in the face. And I will say the drop off definitely does not come through on camera like it does in real life. In the camera you see all the trees, and like in reality you probably get caught in the trees, but I mean, dude, best case scenario, your car's 50, 100 feet down a ravine, like how are you gonna get it out? So it just, that's something you gotta play through your mind when you're driving this road and you're starting to feel comfortable and confident and you want to start picking up the pace, and then you're like, but the risk is there. So we do pick up the pace, right? You know, this is just our first run through it, but yeah, so I'm gonna stop talking for a minute, stop jibber jabbering, and let you listen to the sounds of an SR screaming a little bit in the mountains. We got so used to having to be the ones passing, not used to the feeling of someone catching up to us. This is the first time someone caught up to us, and he caught up quick. I saw him back, you know, a little ways back, and then I saw him right behind me, and I was like, I'm not going to hold this guy up. You know, maybe he's okay with hanging behind me, and that's what he wants to do, but, you know, I don't want to block him. He definitely is significantly faster than us. So Ben pulled out of the way, too, same reason, and then we got back to ripping. It's so fun. I cannot describe to you how fun this is. And I know a lot of you have been to this road, but if you haven't, man, I would highly suggest doing it. But again, if you do it, please stay within your limits. Drive within your limits. That is so important. So we're coming up on the end here of the uphill, up mountain. Would you call it uphill or up mountain version? We decided to pull back into the little Killboy stop. It's awesome that they have these little places to kind of hang out at either end of the road, just so you can kind of take a minute and then get back at it. But when we went to leave to go do another rip, there was a little problem with Ben's car. Yeah, I wouldn't take that bolt out if it's that tight. The good thing we got all-wheel drive cars. So pretty out here. We're going back to the Airbnb. We gotta fix Ben's cars. Power steering tensioner. No through traffic. There's a much better way to the Airbnb. However, Ben's GPS took him. Go this way. Back way. Instead of going through the town. course the camera fell. So we ended up down some dirt road. It looked sketchy, and I was like, maybe we're supposed to go this way. Let me help spot Ben. So by the time that was all over and we got to Ace to try to get a bolt, because basically we had stolen a nut off the coilover to make the bolt that broke a stud, and we got it working, and honestly it would have been fine. We should have just gone back out on the Dragon, but we wanted to fix it right. We went all the way back to town, 30 minutes away to Ace. Unfortunately they were closed, small town things. So by the time we did that, we ate. It was getting pretty late, so Ben wanted to go on a night run. You know, we're not trying to push it at all at night, because I mean it definitely is a very different experience. All you can see is the corner and what's directly in front of you, so it feels really surreal, you know, because you don't know what's around each corner. So we made it to the bottom, we hung out for a little bit, shot the bull, and then we decided to head back up. And I had a pretty interesting encounter. I was really cruising on the way back up, and then boom, little baby bear comes running out in front of me. I saw him and I was like, what is that? But luckily I avoided him, didn't hit him, didn't go flying off the road, all was well. So we cruised back to the Airbnb, and that was pretty much it for night one. Time to go back for day two. So we get out there for day two. It's overcast. It's been overcast the whole time. It was supposed to rain, but then it said it wasn't gonna rain, so we weren't in a huge rush to get out there in the morning, and that was a mistake. So we head off on the road. I like this direction better. Part of it's just because I'm on the inside with the right-hand drive car, not the outside, so I feel a little more confident and comfortable. So we take off, ripping down this way. See my dome light flickering. It's like every time I took a hard left turn, the door would move just enough for the dome light to be triggered. So somewhere right around here, very shortly into the run, it started drizzling, and the road was damp. And you know, it's one of those things, you're like, it's probably all right, it's probably fine, but you definitely got to be just that little bit more cautious. And we started to catch up to traffic, and this time was worse than before. Catch up to someone who was intentionally driving the Dragon, not just a bystander driving through on their way home or something, and they just didn't pull over for a while. So they finally pulled over, got out of the way. All right, great, we can get back on it. Trying to get as much running in now as we can before it starts really, really raining, and it's just getting worse and worse the further we go in. It goes from misting to raining a little bit to raining harder. You can see the door light again, but we're trying to enjoy this while we can. We're only here for 2 days. This is the second day. We can't waste it. It can't be wasted from rain. So I'm having a blast. I was really feeling comfortable this day. You know, we'd already done a run on it. We kind of had an idea of how the corners worked and what was what. Just, it was definitely a better drive until we caught up to yet another person, and we got stuck behind them for miles, and I finally gave up. Pulled into this pull-off. I figured we hadn't gone on a single one of these pull-offs, you know, the whole time we've been here, so I thought it'd be cool to check out the view. So parked the cars up, got a couple pictures, took a look at the view. Super scenic up here. I know I've said it before, but man, it's coming from Florida, it's definitely really cool. So we headed back the other way. There was a motorcycle that had wrecked here and broke his arm, so like a truck had come and picked him up, and so on and so forth. And it was like raining at this point. You can see the ground is completely wet. So luckily we're in all-wheel drive cars, so you can, not that we're going to drive hard. I mean, I'm on Intel ones, you know, they're semi-slick tires, not at all meant for driving in the rain, but you know, you can be a little bit aggressive. It's not like you're in a rear-wheel drive car where if you give it just a little too much throttle, it's going to kick out. You know, the all-wheel drive car is pretty lenient and forgiving. So since the Dragon was pretty much a complete rain-soaked bust, we decided to check out some of the other roads. So this is the, I'm going to completely butcher this, the Chiriola, the Skyway. It's called the Skyway. So it's a really, really elaborate road built into the mountain. This is the kind of the beginning of it when you're getting going up to it. This is the more tight technical section. It's really scenic through here, as is pretty much everywhere. Really cool, but still raining over here. We were hopeful that by the time we got over here, it would have stopped raining, or it wouldn't be raining because it wasn't raining when we left. But of course, it's not Florida where it's just going to rain in a 2 square mile radius. It was raining everywhere. So we're climbing up this this mountain here, and I mean it's pretty steep, and it's got a guardrail the whole way, but you can see you're getting up there. You're getting up into the clouds. And my thing with roads like this is like, yes, I mean I guess you could maybe even call this a better road than the Tail of the Dragon. But the problem is all the corners are pretty wide and sweeping. So, if it was dry, right, you'd really have to go 70 through the turns for it to be like exciting, 60, 70. You'd have to go fast, and that's what makes the Dragon fun is you can go slow. Like you can go less than 50 and still be pushing it. So pulled off on the little pull-off deal, took a look at the view, and decided to head back to the Dragon and hope that by now it will have dried up some. So this is the road up to the Dragon. It's kind of funny because it's real wide sweeping turns, and all of a sudden you come across this bridge and it's this hard right-hander and then just straight uphill. So it's got some twisty turns. This one's kind of rough for me in the right-hand drive because the drop-off is like even more apparent than it is on the Dragon. But I mean, it's technically the Dragon. It's the same road. It's US 129. It's just before the quote-unquote Dragon portion of it starts. So we pull off, get ready to go rip the Dragon one last time because we're not coming back at night. We're gonna go eat after this. This is gonna be our last rip on the Dragon before we have to head home and say goodbye forever. Now, as you can see, it's still damp, and in the woods like this, you don't have as much sunlight to dry it. So a lot of it was damp, which definitely put a damper on things. You can't push as hard, right? If it's wet, it's probably fine, but you don't really know where the limit is because it's wet out, and it's a lot riskier to find the limit of grip when it's wet out and it's patchy like this. It's changing. So we still had fun. At this point we're the most comfortable we're gonna get. We've done it 2 runs, down and back now. So like I said, you really start to learn the sequence of the corners. Like you start to realize which corners are going to be wide and short, or which corners are going to be big hairpins, and you can kind of go a little faster and carry a little more momentum. So it doesn't actually sound as aggressive as the runs we did before because I'm rarely using second gear. I'm trying to maintain momentum in third gear. So less of the floor it to the corner, slam on the brakes, downshift, accelerate out, more so trying to just use my momentum and keep my speed through the corners. And it's definitely a really fun way to do it. It feels a lot more, I don't know, there's a lot more like flow to it, I guess you could say. But it's obviously not as intense as banging through the gears, rubbing the gears, but either way, all of it is still fun. So our bad luck continues this day with catching people that don't want to let us by. I think total 1 person let us by the whole day. 2 motorcycles did too. But we get stuck behind this Jeep, and I try to stay behind them and just wait. Once they pass 2 pull-offs, 3 pull-offs, I'm like, all right, they're not getting over. So I slowed way down, pulled in a pull-off, waited like 3 minutes, and was like, all right, we're good now. They should be far enough ahead. Let's go do a little rip. So we get on it, start driving a little more aggressive again. Like, oh, this will be fine. We shouldn't catch up to him that soon. But then, within not much time at all, we were caught back up to the Jeep. So this kind of just goes on. You know, we stop, let them get a gap, go back out, stop, let them get a gap. Back up once again. So that was pretty rough. Getting stuck behind people is rough. They go so much slower. I mean, the guys go like 10 miles an hour through the corner, which I don't blame them. It's just, man. But I mean, I'm thankful that as many people let us by as they did. There's a lot of locals that let us by, and I mean, I could see how they would be grumpy and be like, like they don't need to be going that fast. So the fact that we got let by at all, really, it's awesome. It would be amazing if everyone did let you by, though. That would be really cool. So we head back out. By this time, it's dark. You know, we had to wait a while for the rain to dry off some, and this way we kind of did things a little different. We pretty much tried to stay in third the whole time. There was a cop up ahead of us, and I mean, he was ripping. He ends up letting us by at one point, but you know, we weren't going to go that fast, so we're just cruising in third gear, using momentum, and I don't know, it's so fun no matter how you do it. You know, whether you're ripping or you're just cruising like this, you know, nose to tail, it was a great time. Just like that, our trip to the Dragon is over. I do wish we would have got more drive time. We kind of screwed up that first day going all the way back to the Airbnb town to get the bolt for the tensioner. We should have definitely done some more rips. That was our prime time, but hey, just more incentive to go back sooner than later.